Testing, testing.
Here, look at this. My password is
Welcome, everybody. For the record, I'm Kumar Barve, the chair of the commission. I'm here with three of my colleagues. One, Commissioner Suchman, is not able to, she has an excused absence. So, welcome to the annual reliability hearing which is case number 9353. And we are going to begin, as we always do, with the commission staff. So, who would like to go first? DeAndre, would you like to go first?
Yes, I can go first.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. DeAndre T. Wilson here on behalf of staff. To my left, I have Mr. Michael Dean from Staff Council. And to my right, we have Latangia Bunch, Staff Engineer. And before I begin, I would just like to point out an error in staff's report. On page 3, under the excerpt regarding the periodic equipment inspections, it states that Delmarva and Pepco reported non-compliance with the periodic equipment inspection standard and have submitted caps to address missed substation and transformer inspections. That statement is incorrect. The statement should say that Delmarva and Pepco did not report non-compliance in 2025.
All right, terrific. And by the way, when everyone testifies today, please make sure your proper spelling of your name is entered into the record, whether you give a business card to our court reporter or say it out loud.
Indeed. With that, my name is DeAndre Wilson. That's D-E capital A-N-D-R-E. T as in Tom, Wilson, W-I-L-S-O-N. All right. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Once again, DeAndre Wilson on behalf of technical staff, and with me, I have members of the engineering division who have contributed to staff's report that will be available to address any questions at the conclusion of staff's presentation. Please feel free to stop to address, we're available to address any questions throughout the presentation. If not, please feel free to wait until after the conclusion of our presentation.
I believe that's what we're going to do. We'll wait until the end of your presentation, if that appears to be fine with the bench. So, okay.
Very well. Pursuant to COMAR 2050-12.11, each electric distribution company is required to file an annual reliability performance report by April 1st of each year. The 2025 reporting year represents the 13th full year of reliability reporting under COMAR 2050-12. Staff has completed its review of each utility's filing, including the corrective action plans previously required under Commission Order Number 91799. Overall, staff finds that the Maryland electric distribution system continues to perform at a high level. 4 of the 5 electric companies met both their safety and SAIDI reliability standards during 2025. Potomac Edison met its safety standard but did not meet its SAIDI standard and has submitted a new corrective action plan for commission review. BGE, Delmarva, Pepco continue to perform within the first quartile nationally for both outage frequency and duration. Potomac Edison ranked in the 3rd and 4th quartile, while SEMECO did not report its national rankings. All 5 utilities met the multiple device activation, downwire response standard, customer communication, and vegetation management standards. BGE and Delmarva both completed their 2024 caps, while Pepco was granted a limited stay of enforcement for the remaining areas of its cap associated with critical facilities. Next slide. The following slide provides a summary of each utility's compliance with the applicable COMAR standards. Green indicates reflect full compliance, while red indicates non-compliance. 4 of the 5 electric companies met the system-wide reliability standards. Pepco Edison did not meet its SAIDI target and submitted a corrective action plan once again. BGE, Delmarva, and Pepco reported repeat poorest performing feeders and submitted or completed corrective actions. Potomac Edison did not meet the service interruption standard during a major outage event in 2025. And Semeco satisfied all applicable reliability standards. System-wide reliability is measured using the SAIFI and SAIDI reliability metric performance standards. SAIFI measures the average number of sustained outages experienced by customers each year, while SAIDI measures the average duration of those outages. The reported results exclude qualifying major event outages as required by COMAR. As shown from the table, 4 of the 5 electric companies met both the system-wide reliability standards. 4 of the 5 electric companies met both system-wide standards. Potomac Edison was able to meet its 2025 safety target, but exceeded its 2025 SAIDI threshold for the second consecutive year, reporting a SAIDI of 173.8 minutes against a standard of 142 minutes. Statewide weighted averages are provided in the table. As a corrective action, Potomac Edison's 2025 CAP proposes to continue refining 2 of the 3 actions taken from its 2024 CAP. 1, continuing to restore the DA schemes to full operational capability, and 2, ensure fault-free battery energy system storage system operations. Staff's confidence in these planned corrective actions is limited, as data shows that the projected gains from these actions equate to approximately 10 SAIDI minutes, which falls short of Potomac Edison's 2024 SAIDI performance, where the company exceeded its SAIDI target by approximately 14.5 minutes, nor does it bridge the gap between Potomac Edison's 2025 SAIDI performance, where it exceeded SAIDI by approximately 32 minutes. Potomac Edison attributed its failure to meet the 2024 SAIDI target, to a combination of increased storm activities, unexpected vegetation-related conditions, and operational issues affecting system restoration. The company reported 6 IEEE major event days and 8 additional high-impact storm days. The company also identified unexpected soil deterioration as a contributing factor, reporting that weakened and shallow soil conditions cause trees to uproot more easily and fall into overhead electric lines, resulting in additional outages and restoration work. Lastly, the company reported operational issues involving certain distribution animation schemes and a battery energy storage system facilities, limiting the availability or effectiveness of technologies intended to isolate faults, restore service, and reduce outage duration. In addition to building upon corrective actions initiated in 2024, including restoring distribution animation schemes to full operational capability and improving battery energy storage system, the company plans to deploy its Advanced Vegetation Analytics Tool, or AVAT, a machine learning-based decision support tool designed to better prioritize vegetation management work by identifying circuits with the greatest outage risk. Although AVAT tools appears promising, staff is not yet persuaded that the proposed actions will produce sufficient SAIDI improvement. Therefore, staff will be recommending that Potomac Edison submit an interim filing of its 2026 year-to-date performance of SAFE and SADE, and provide quantitative analysis of the effectiveness of its corrective actions. Next, we have the poorest performing feeder standard. The poorest performing feeder standard requires that each utility list the feeders with the poorest reliability measured by a circuit reliability performance of 250% or more above the utility's system-wide SAFE and SADE. After taking remedial actions to improve reliability performance, no feeder shall appear in the utility's list of poorest performing feeders during 3 consecutive 12-month reporting periods. If a utility fails to satisfy the standard, it shall provide a corrective action plan. In 2025, statewide, 55 feeders met the poorest performing feeder criteria across the 5 utilities, serving an average of 785 customers per feeder. Of the 55 reported poorest performing feeders, 5 feeders appeared as repeat poorest performing feeders. BGE reported 2, Delmarva reported 2, and Pepco reported 1. Potomac Edison and Semeco did not report any repeat poorest performing feeders in 2025. BGE, Delmarva, and Pepco submitted caps as required. As a corrective action, BGE is planning to expedite routine vegetation trimming in the first quarter of 2026 and adding large tap reclosing, distribution automation, and new automated feeder ties. Delmarva completed vegetation trimming in 2025 and is implementing 34 kV recloser replacement and DA schemes, distribution automation schemes. Pepco's replacing 12 poles and 12 cross arms and installing an automatic circuit recloser, or ACR. Staff finds the proposed corrective action plans submitted by BGE, Delmarva, and Pepco acceptable. Next, we have the service interruption standard. COMAR 2050-1206 sets forth 2 distinct service interruption standards. COMAR requires utilities to restore at least 92% of customers within 8 hours under normal conditions, and at least 95% within 50 hours during qualifying major outage events. In 2025, all 5 electric companies met the 92% 8-hour restoration standard under normal operation conditions. Both BGE and Potomac Edison reported major outage events in 2025, but Potomac Edison failed the standard, reporting a service interruption standard performance of only 90.51% of customers restored within 50 hours during its April major outage event. As a corrective action, Potomac Edison proposes earlier activation of its 50-hour restoration prioritization, enhanced damage assessment and hazard response execution, improved resource scalability for low forecast high impact events, strengthened restoration coordination and situational awareness, and performance monitoring and continuous improvement. Staff finds the company's corrective actions acceptable. Next, we have the major outage event reporting and IEEE major events. A commission-defined major outage event occurs when the applicable customer outage threshold is exceeded and at least one affected customer remains without service for more than 24 hours. The utility must file a report within 35 days. A commission-defined major outage event occurs when the applicable customer outage threshold is exceeded at least one affected customer remains remains, utility must file a report 35 days, correct? In 2025, all of the electric companies reported experiencing at least one IEEE major event day. According to the table, it shows that BGE reported 8 IEEE major event days, Delmarva 4, Potomac Edison 6, Pepco 4, and Semeco reported 4 IEEE major event days. During the 2025 reporting year, BGE and Potomac Edison each experienced one commission-defined major outage event. BGE's February 2025 windstorm jet affected approximately 115,000 customers, while Potomac Edison's April 2025 severe thunderstorm affected approximately 42,000 customers. During these events, both companies' down-wire response performance fell below the annual 90% standard. However, when evaluated over the entire reporting year, both BGE and Potomac Edison met the Commission's annual down-wire response standard. BGE restored more than 98% of affected customers within 50 hours and met the major outage event service interruption standard, while Potomac Edison restored approximately 91% of affected customers within 50 hours and did not meet the Commission's 95% restoration requirement. As a result, Potomac Edison submitted a corrective action plan to address its major outage event performance. Next, we have the Periodic Equipment Inspection Standard. COMAR 2050-1210 requires each electric company to maintain documented inspection and maintenance procedures, report missed inspections, and submit a corrective action plan when necessary. These requirements are intended to identify deteriorating equipment before it fails. In Commission Order number 91799, the Commission accepted the corrective action plans submitted by BGE, Pepco, and Delmarva to address previously missed periodic equipment inspections. These plans strengthened accountability, improved asset management and data verification processes, and required completion of outstanding inspections. The Commission also adopted staff's recommended modifications, including enhanced status reporting, increased engineering division oversight, follow-up correspondence, and continued monitoring of each company's work down plan. The Commission directed the companies to implement these corrective measures, and throughout 2025, staff monitored their implementation and evaluated the effectiveness of the corrective actions in improving compliance with the Commission's periodic equipment inspection requirements. For the 2025 reporting year, BGE reported no missed distribution, substation, or relay and control inspections. Delmarva reported no new systematic inspection deficiencies, and Pepco reported no new systematic inspection deficiencies or missed inspections. Potomac Edison and Semeco reported no missed inspections and required no corrective actions as well. As an assessment of the 2024 CAPS for missed O&M inspections, BGE completed the remaining subsurface transformer inspections from the prior reporting cycle and previously completed its work down plan addressing 640 missing inspections. Delmarva also completed its previously approved work down plan, while Pepco completed all outstanding underground manhole, substation transformer, and generator inspections, with 5 relay inspections and 3 circuit breaker inspections remaining due to the company's need to carefully coordinate outages at critical infrastructure. As a result, after further consideration and additional information, staff approved a limited stay of enforcement through through September 30th, 2026, subject to monthly status reporting. Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Staff concludes, you can go back. Staff concludes that the prior corrective actions have strengthened the company's inspection programs. No caps are required, although staff will continue monitoring Pepco's remaining inspections under the approved stay of enforcement. Next, we have manhole and conduit events. Comar 20501211B9 requires annual reporting of manhole and conduit events involving lid displacement. Following staff's review of the 2024 annual reliability performance reports, the Commission determined that the reoccurrence of manhole and conduit events within BGE's underground system warranted enhanced oversight. Accordingly, in order number 91799, the Commission directed BGE to submit quarterly reports describing its preventative maintenance and response activities, capital improvement projects, coordination with Baltimore City, and any reportable manhole and conduit events. Staff has reviewed BGE's quarterly reports and finds that the company has complied with the Commission's reporting requirements. BGE reported continued investment in conduit rehabilitation, manhole reconstruction, duct bank construction, obstruction removal, and other targeted underground infrastructure improvements. BGE continues to use a risk-based asset management approach and coordinate with BGE's Baltimore City on rehabilitation priorities. BGE also reported no events during the third quarter of 2025 or the first quarter of 2026. Although encouraging, the period is too limited to establish a sustained improvement. Staff recommends continuing the quarterly reporting requirement to establish a long-term performance record, evaluate the effectiveness of BGE's preventative maintenance and capital investment strategies, and determine whether additional regulatory actions become warranted. Next, we have staff's review of BGE's motor-operated switchgear program. In order number 91799, the Commission directed BGE to provide additional information regarding the scope, cost, benefits, deployment risk, and multi-year plan treatment of its motor-operated switchgear program. In its report, BGE reported that MOS deployment avoided approximately 6,729 customer interruptions in 2025. Staff finds that the program has produced measurable reliability benefits, particularly by reducing outage frequency. BGE reported no significant technical or operational deployment barriers as well. Staff finds that the MOS program generally aligns with the reliability objectives of BGE's approved multi-year plan. However, staff recommends continued tracking of actual expenditures, deployment levels, and realized reliability benefits. However, the current record does not establish cost effectiveness or prudency. Those issues should be addressed in a future rate case or multi-year plan proceeding. Overall, 8 of the 11 reliability performance standards were met or exceeded during the 2025 reporting year. BGE, Delmarva, and Pepco continued to report first quartile reliability performance compared with national peers, while Potomac Edison remained in the third quartile for SAIFI and fourth quartile for SAIDI. Staff's trend analysis shows mixed results. BGE was the only utility to improve both SAIFI and SAIDI relative to its 3-year average, while Delmarva remained generally stable. Potomac Edison improved its SAIFI performance sufficiently to meet the 2025 standard, but its SAIDI performance continued to decline. Staff finds that Potomac Edison's prior SAIFI corrective action plan was effective. However, Staff has concerns regarding whether the company's new SADE corrective action plan will produce sufficient improvement and recommends requiring an interim progress report. Staff also recommends accepting Potomac Edison's corrective action plan for failing to meet the 50-hour restoration standard during the April 2025 major outage event. With respect to periodic equipment inspections, BGE and Delmarva completed their prior corrective action plans, while Pepco substantially completed its obligations and is completing the remaining inspections at critical facilities under a limited stay of enforcement through September 30th, 2026. Staff also finds that BGE's motor-operated switchgear program has produced measurable reliability benefits and generally aligns with the objectives of its approved multi-year plan. However, the current record does not establish the program's cost effectiveness or prudency. Staff therefore recommends that BGE separately report MOS costs and benefits in future reliability filings and rate proceedings. All 5 electric companies also submitted updated wildfire mitigation and hurricane preparation information. Accordingly, staff recommends that the Commission accept the 2025 Annual Reliability Performance Reports, accept the corrective action plans addressing Potomac Edison's SADE and major outage event performance, and the repeat porous performing feeders identified by BGE, Delmarva, and Pepco. Require an interim report on Potomac Edison's SADE corrective actions. And finally, staff recommends the Commission direct BGE to provide continued reporting on MOS program cost and reliability benefits. That concludes staff's presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Any questions for staff? Commissioner McLean, do you have any? Okay.
Good morning, sir. I was wondering if you had any reaction to OPC's filing and their recommendations.
In regards to,
Well, they made several recommendations. They recommended civil penalties against 3 utilities, for example, and they made some, their findings were that the utilities were spending more on CapEx rather than O&M, and that their expenditures weren't translating into increased reliability.
in regards to the missed inspections recommendation, that their comments they made in regards to a civil penalty, at this point, staff does not support the utilities receiving a civil penalty. As we stated, the utilities, 2 out of the 3 have fulfilled their 2024 CAP or corrective action plans. They've completed those, and those that have not shown any, have not exceeded or shown a non-compliance with any of the reliability standards. The one company that has not completed its CAP is Pepco. They reported, they reached out to staff prior to their filing to express to us where they were with their corrective actions. We had further conversations, and staff inquired further information to gain a better understanding as to what their, what the issue was, and we saw that the complexity that's involved with coordinating outages in order to make corrective actions for critical facilities can be a little complicated, and may take, could have taken more time than needed or was available. So with that, we did decide to extend them a limited stay of enforcement with additional reporting to follow the status and completion of that, the remaining inspections. They did not show any signs of there being any outages associated with these items of plant that have not been inspected or continue to be inspected. So at this time, we feel the utilities are making progress. For the most part, they have been in compliance, and so we at this point, we do not support a civil penalty.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about the level of capital expenditures that the utilities are making in relation to the reliability gains?
We are always concerned about the level of capital investments made by the utilities in regards to reliability. I think what we've done some, of course, we've done some extended analysis in regards to that. We're still trying to gather a measure as to how to effectively assess the cost effectiveness of these investments, how they directly correlate to reliability. We understand that the focus of these investments are to address or improve reliability. Majority of the utilities are in the first quartile of performance. So at some point, we understand that the investments may not translate to the amount of improvement that we see in regards to some of these investments. So we're continuing to monitor that. We definitely are concerned. We definitely have an eye on it. But with the, we're definitely doing more, looking into it with these future proposed safety standards, where most of the utilities have are exercising a flat trajectory for their safety targets. So in that regard, we feel that they too have, to some extent, understand that more capital spending has to reflect a improved reliability. It may not be linear, but to some extent, we're gaining a better understanding as to how to translate the cost effectiveness of those investments.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
So following up on Commissioner McLean's question with regards to the People's Council's recommendations about fining for 3 of the companies, I appreciate that staff has recognized that the companies have expressed some concern about the complexity of the work that has to be done. That complexity continues even now. So I guess my question is, they're doing 2 things at once. They're catching up on the old inspections and should be maintaining a similar pace to be successful for the next year. Is staff confident that that's happening?
We are confident at this time that it is happening because based on the record and what they have reported, they are not behind in inspections. Previous year, some of the utilities were behind in inspections and were playing catch up, and so they provided staff with a work down plan, showing that they were working to become in compliance with work that had been missed. At this point, BGE, Delmarva, and to some extent, substantially, Pepco is up to date with their inspections. None of the utilities, again, have reported any missed inspections in 2025. They have been responsive to staff by self-reporting any missed inspections. So at this point, we haven't received any news of any missed inspections, and so we're confident that they are on the path of correcting their deficiencies in regards to missing inspections and their processes.
All right. That's for all 3 of the companies. People's Council recommended fines for 3 different companies, not BGE, but Pepco, with the PHI companies and Potomac Edison.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can you return to slide 14? That's the major outage event. It might have been 13, but is it? No, it was next one. Yes, that's it. So we've had this conversation before. So for everybody else in the room, I know it may be deja vu for some of our staff members, but deja vu all over again. Today, even right now, we're under a flood watch, potential pop-up storm concerns for the entire 95 corridor right now. And as you know, our major outage event standard, 100,000 customers or 10% of the company's service territory. Are we, is the structure we have now capturing the kinds of storms we've been seeing over the last several years? These highly intense pop-up storms that result in multi-day outages for a localized group of consumers, as opposed to ones that are what we historically used to see, and thankfully haven't been seeing lately, is the large hurricane kind that wipe out half the state and other states as well. Other consumers are having that kind of hurricane experience, but it's very localized. And I know the utility companies can make a filing should they choose to do so if it's been below the major outage event standards in COMAR. But if they don't choose to do so, then we may not get the same comprehensive data we normally get. So what is staff's thoughts about that? Has it changed any? I know we've had this conversation several years ago. So is it different now or is it the same?
Well, BGE did submit an analysis regarding major outage events and benchmarking. And since there is a lot of distribution automation, we don't see as many customer outages as we would have normally seen in the past. But there is a lot of system damage that occurs during these storms. So I can't say whether or not it is capturing everything that's occurring since we don't see as many customer outages. So I can't say that we need to modify the standard to be more inclusive or to reduce the number of outages that would trigger a major outage event. So yes, I think that's all I have to say on that. We can't say whether or not it's capturing everything because of the improvements that a lot of the companies have made on their systems.
So do we need a second or a different standard in addition to the major outage event standard?
Well, I think if you'd like to see a more comprehensive report for these smaller storms, then we may need to look into something like that. Because in my experience, I haven't had the electric companies submit reports when they have major event days as opposed to major outage events. So if you'd like to see a more comprehensive report for these different major event days, then I think that we would need to request that or make that a standard.
And if I could add, as of recently, we have had more minor storms just over the past several months now. We've had a couple alerts, and whether they were associated with storms or associated with more higher level grid alerts. The utilities have been communicating. I feel have increased their level of communication with the utility and staff regarding their operational situations, their staffing, and their plans or preparations for upcoming storms. So with that provides staff more eyes, more visibility on how these utilities are responding and or responding to various levels of storms and outage types of events. Staff has also increased its visibility. We keep an eye on some of the local municipalities as well. Utilizing some software tools, we are able to receive alerts when certain levels of customer outages reaches even at the county level. So then we're able to reach out to utilities to inquire further as to what the situation may be. Sometimes it might be one particular transmission level outage that's taken out a large number of customers that are quickly restored, or some individual county instances where a flooding may be more impactful on local or municipal level jurisdictions more so than the larger state in part. So, both staff and I believe the utilities have increased our correspondence. We continue to send or provide our analysis based on some of these storms that we've seen recently, and staff has increased its level of scrutiny in regards to the information that they provided. So with that, I think it will provide us a better understanding as to which direction we should go, or if the direction or where we are is sufficient enough in due time.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, and I'll probably ask a similar question to some of the other companies when they make their presentations. As you know, the major outage event data and reporting has its genesis in the number of hurricanes that had happened several years ago, probably more than several years, over a couple decades. But the goal wasn't to penalize or punish, but just to make sure that we had data reflecting how the companies are responding to storms when there are multi-day outages. But now we're seeing a similar intensity, but on a much more localized scale. And it's just, changing climate type of issues that are creating these new types of storms. So, I'm not trying to criticize anyone. I'm just trying to make sure we are gathering information that'll be valuable for us in rate cases and for consumers as well. So, thanks. I appreciate the information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hoover?
Actually, if I could follow up on Commissioner Linton's questions, as he was talking about in the old days when we where the major outage events were hurricanes.
Not too old now.
Trust me, I was there too.
And longer.
The process was different in the sense that they got warnings on that, because you could tell when the hurricane was coming to visit us, because they went other places first, and then they would do various things to locate additional resources to deal with the restoration activities. So if we're dealing now with these, small thunderstorms that are sort of on steroids because of climate change that cause the same level of damage that you would see from a hurricane, but as Commissioner Linton said, in a sort of smaller area, is it now sort of forcing them to be more reliant on their own resources as opposed to what they used to do when they got help from neighboring utilities?
So I think what we've seen from staff's more recent major outage event report analysis that we provided, and this year we've provided 2 reports, and last year we're looking, or the commission as a whole has been looking at the qualified line personnel issue. Basically trying to understand how the utilities dispatch their resources, their internal, local resources, and whether that's sufficient enough to address some of these more recent storm impacts. And so getting a better understanding of their internal resources will address their need to request outside resources, or those that are coming from outside of the state in order to assist some of these utilities. As we know, some of them share a lot of these resources. So one utility may have more resources than the other, and then that leaves some other utilities or smaller ones with the leftovers, just for lack of a better word. So our continued analysis and understanding of these internal practices and these quality line personnel procedures and guidelines will help us, I think will help us better understand what is sufficient and what isn't. And by doing that, I think that will help improve the utilities' responses to local emergencies and outages in their territories, or even amongst each other when they share resources. So I think we're headed in the right direction in regards to our continued consideration of those types of policies, and further understanding of that will provide us with a better understanding of how we should move forward.
Okay, so on a different topic, is it just a coincidence that the three Exelon companies had problems with the poorest performing feeders, or is there something that they were doing or not doing that PE and SMECO do that had them in compliance and the Exelon companies out of compliance?
Thank you. Well, based on our analysis at this point, we can't really draw a conclusion as to why the Exelon utilities were the utilities that reported repeat poorest performing feeders. It is a standard that, as we've shown, all the utilities have shown poorest performing feeder. The remedial actions at times can be hit or miss, depending on whether, other influences, whether that utility has seen increased storms while a particular feeder might be remediating or going under remediation or things of that sort. But at this time, there's no correlation that we can make in regards to the
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any questions, so thank you for your presentation. Let's now turn to the Exelon utilities, BGE, Pepco, and Delmarva Power and Light.
Thank you.
Is that okay? We got 6.
Okay, so we need one of our people to sit behind.
Okay, you've got all the names. Okay.
Oh, John, Alex.
And then Aaron, you got the 3rd seat there, sir.
All right. Well, you're not settled in yet. Okay. Who'd like to kick us off here?
Oh, I guess we'll go first.
Okay.
I'm happy to go first too, Bev, whatever you'd like.
We'll go alphabetically. We don't want to mess up the agenda.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Beverly Sikora on behalf of BGE. I have Matt Fiery here with me today. He's the Director of Distribution Planning, Smart Grid, and Innovation. Rebecca Ehrlich, who's the Director of Distribution System Operations, which means she is on Stormwatch right now, so she's anxious to, get ready for the storm. And then sitting behind us, we have Alex Prego. He's the Senior Manager of Reliability Programs. So I have nothing further to say because I'm just a lawyer. I will pass it on to Mr. Fiery.
All right. Thanks, Bev. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's Matt Fiery, M-A-T-T-F-I-E-R-Y. I'll be discussing 2 topics specifically for BGE this morning. One, just reflecting on our 2025 reliability performance, and then a bit of commentary on our corrective action plans for the poorest performing feeder standard. So from a reliability perspective, one thing we are proud of is the performance of both SAIFI and SAIDI in 2025. With respect to SAIFI, that was our 3rd best performance ever on record. And also for context, where we stand so far this year, trending quite favorably. We are only 7 months through the year, but well on track for another very good reliability performance, and possibly on track to set our best year on record if things continue as they have. And then, the other thing that's worth noting is that, we hear concerns about, capital investments, and we are Also working hard to try and get the most out of the investments that have already been made on our system, whether that's coming from data analytics or other distribution automation, and our auto restoration schemes are a couple of examples that are out there, really just to try to make sure that we're balancing that reliability and affordability issues that are top of mind for customers. I'll shift over to our poorest performing feeder standard and the corrective action plans tied to that. For context, there were 2 feeders, 2 circuits on the list. That's out of approximately 1,300 circuits that we have on our system that we're responsible for maintaining. In that corrective action plan, we do note there are some, to Commissioner Hoover, to your point, the 2 feeders that we're talking about in the corrective action plan are in rural parts of our service territory, heavily treed, very lengthy feeders. I think one is 87 miles of exposure, the other one is 122 miles of exposure. Comparatively to other circuits on our system, the average exposure is about 15 miles. So you just have far less customer density, and so some of the typical solutions that you might employ on other feeders don't go quite as far on these more rural feeders. And so, it's outlined in the corrective action plan, but we did have to go a step further than maybe we would have on other feeders to truly remediate some of the issues that we've seen because of the level of exposure that we have with trees and other types of failure modes in those areas. One thing I will note is the vast majority of the corrective work has already been completed so far this year. So in a good place from that perspective, with hopes that as we continue forward, those feeders will be performing more in line with expectation and adhere to those standards. Those improvements that were tree trimming, additional distribution automation, so that when an outage does happen, it's confined to a smaller number of customers than they otherwise would have been, and then also trying to prevent them through other corrective maintenance activities. So those really are the types of actions that were taken on those feeders, and we think those steps, coupled with the ongoing maintenance that we perform, will have these circuits back in alignment with the poor performing feeder standards. So keeping it brief, but certainly welcome questions or comments.
We'll take questions for all of the utilities at the end of your entire presentation, I think. So is that it for your side? Okay, then let's go to Mr. McKeel.
Hi, Douglas E. Keel. I'm here on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light Company and Potomac Electric Power Company. To my far left is Aaron Smith. He is our Director of Engineering. Right to my immediate left is Sarah Lacey. She is Director of Transmission and Substation. And behind me is Chris Barker. He is a Strategic Manager, Senior Manager of Strategic Planning for PHI. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
There you are.
So I just have a little bit of outbound going on. Commissioner Hoover, just to answer your question about the poorest performing feeders, it's coincidence. It's nothing operationally that we're doing or not doing. As it relates to poorest performing feeders, I believe these are the first poorest performing feeders that Pepco has had, or the first poorest performing feeder that Pepco has had in a number of years. Just to give you an idea, Pepco has 718 feeders, and we have one poorest performing feeder, so it's less than 0.1%. That is going to happen. We have a corrective action plan in place that's going to fix that. As it relates to Delmarva, we have had some issues with Delmarva, but part of that is Delmarva's topography. As you know, the service territory has a lot of long feeders going down peninsulas on the Chesapeake Bay area side, and then we also have the Northeast District, which is very hilly, and I'm from Iowa, so I'm going to say mountainous, but it's not really mountainous, but to me they're mountains, so it's very hilly. So we had 2 feeders in our Northeast District, and the topography of those feeders are very steep, feeders, highly treed, and whatnot. So we have 178 feeders in Delmarva, Maryland, so that's 1.1 0.1% of those feeders. Again, we have a corrective action plan that's going to do that, going to fix the issues that we're seeing, and this is not like it is a continuing issue. I would say overall, both the performance of Pepco and Delmarva, you saw the staff's green. We continue to perform and meet all the service quality and reliability standards that this commission has put forth, and we're very proud of that fact. With respect to the question that Commissioner McLean had regarding the Office of People's Counsel's comments as it related to reliability and measuring your reliability, I have a few things I'd like to say on that. First of all, it's important to understand that reliability is the result of thousands of assets, operational decisions, maintenance activities, and system investments working together. It's not one isolated thing that we do. Some programs do and can have a direct measurable relationship on outcomes, and I think BG&E talked about this example. Reclosers installed as part of distribution automation scheme. A company can identify how many customer sustained outages are avoided if the device automatically isolates a fault. However, and this is key, many reliability activities are foundational in nature and do not lend themselves to precise attribution for SAIDI and SAIFI, and that's what OPC wants. A useful analogy is the personal fitness and weight loss. Overall health outcomes are influenced by many factors working together. It's difficult to determine exactly how much result came from a specific exercise or whether actions such as caloric reduction may be directly measurable. But what you do know is you're getting healthier. And what the SAIDI and SAIFI numbers tell us for Pepco and Delmarva is that the investments that we've been making, both in O&M and in capital projects, have resulted in a healthy system that's in the first quartile and has been in the first quartile. Similarly, reliability programs produced by combined effects of asset replacement, vegetation management, inspections, maintenance, and other operator actions, grid modernization, and customer growth. So again, they all go together, and it's kind of like making an omelet. Once you break those eggs and mix the omelet up, it's hard to unscramble. These activities interact with each other, making it difficult to assign specific fraction of SAIDI-SAIFI improvements to a single action. In addition, reliability indices are highly influenced by the timing and location of outage activities and events. A project may successfully reduce risk for years before the avoided outage opportunity actually occurs. This is why any improvements that are ultimately realized tend to lag from when the work is actually completed. Therefore, evaluating individual projects solely on their measured impact in SAIDI and SAIFI would undervalue many investments that improve system health, resiliency, and risk reduction. And I'd also point out that the staff report indicates that in the resiliency area that both Pepco and Delmarva are the most resilient utilities in Maryland. Now, I also want to address just briefly, well, I'm not going to address it, but Ms. Lacey is going to address the periodic inspections. And let me just say this before I turn it over for her outbound. Pepco and Delmarva take this seriously. We have actions in place that Ms. Lacey is going to explain, and we do not believe that financial penalties are appropriate at this juncture. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Lacey to talk specifically about what we're doing in the area of periodic inspections.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Keel. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Lacey. I'm the Director of Transmission and Substation Engineering for both Pepco and Delmarva Power. So at the end of 2024, the company did go ahead and self-report identified missed inspections through an internal audit. This was not the result of an external discovery or an operational event, but it was a result of the company identifying gaps within its own processes and bringing those findings forward. Now, upon identification of the issue, the company developed and executed workdown plans to address all those out-of-compliance inspections. And for the substation inspections in particular that required outages, the companies pursued an aggressive schedule to go ahead and balance the criticality of maintaining reliability with the grid, the criticality of also making sure that the grid is secure during severe weather events that we've been discussing today, and closely coordinating with our critical customers to complete those outage-dependent preventative maintenance items. Now, the company's response did not stop with identifying and correcting the missed inspections. The company conducted a thorough review and evaluation of the underlying causes, identifying and implementing corrective actions designed to prevent reoccurrence. Now, with that, the focus has been on improving quality, our data quality in particular, also strengthening our controls and enhancing the oversight of the inspection process. The company recognized that in addition with working through the corrective actions, additional findings could emerge as data quality improved and self-auditing efforts were enhanced. The possibility should be viewed as evidence that the auditing enhancements through those corrective actions are working, right, rather than failing. The effectiveness of an internal audit program should not be measured by the absence of findings, but rather it should be measured by whether it identifies issues before they effectively impact safety or reliability, and whether those meaningful controls that are put in place prevent future occurrences. Now, the additional missed inspections identified in 25 were directly related to the same underlying data and process weaknesses that were first discovered and reported at the end of 24. They're not the result of new failures or new breakdowns or breakdowns in the corrective action process, but more so a direct result that those corrective actions are working and doing what they were crafted to do. They reflected the continued effort to uncover and resolve all the impacts of the original issue identified. Now, through this process, the company has maintained open communication with staff, providing regular updates, and regarding its process in working down its correctives. As an example, the company has made great effort to complete substation walkdowns to perform in-field data validation as outlined in its corrective action plan. And as that data is validated, the company will be providing an update on any findings. Staff has acknowledged, as we heard earlier today, that the corrective actions taken to date have been effective in addressing the underlying causal factors. Now, I do want to take a moment to address the OPC commentary, and OPC challenges the company's timeline in completing the corrective actions, as well as the effectiveness of the corrective actions and the detail in the workdown plans. So first, regarding the company's timeline, it's been primarily dependent on the coordination of the outages involving critical customers. And just to kind of paint this picture a little bit on the complication that was mentioned earlier, it's really around when you have scenarios of multiple critical customers on these feeders and to be able to perform the preventative maintenance with a single outage, coordinating their schedules, right? So we really have to work through taking into account the customer's operational schedule, their capital work that they're planning to do, as well as the customer's planned maintenance on their own side of the system. Now, the company prides itself on ensuring that we've been working very collaboratively with those critical customers and trying to get as much as preventative maintenance done as quickly as possible. So secondly, I also wanted to address, and as I previously stated, the 2025 findings following the enhancements made to the auditing process through our corrective actions should serve as proof that the corrective actions are being effective in finding any issues and going ahead to close those gaps. And lastly, the detail in our workdown plans and associated oversight continues to go ahead and meet the intent of the effort, which is to ensure that those missed inspections are worked down and carefully coordinated with our customers. Now, most importantly, there was no safety or reliability impact as a result of these missed inspections. And in fact, as Mr. Mike Keel just mentioned, we've continued to demonstrate strong reliability performance for both Pepco and Delmarva. And the company really employs a defense in depth approach when it comes to preventative maintenance, ensuring that between the multiple inspection programs, our monitoring systems, and our operational oversight processes, they're designed to go ahead and identify any equipment concerns before they can affect customers' safety or reliability. So ultimately, the matter demonstrates that the company found an issue on its own through its own internal review, self-reported this first offense, and has been working thoroughly to correct it while continuously communicating and implementing lasting improvements to strengthen our compliance going forward. The company's actions should reflect our commitment to accountability, transparency, communication, and ultimately the safe and reliable operation of our grid. And, as Mr. Mike Keel mentioned, it's the company's position that incurring civil penalties for these self-reported missed inspections are not appropriate at this time based on the actions that both Pepco and Delmarva have taken.
That concludes our presentation. We are open to any questions you may have.
Questions?
Okay.
You're all too polite.
All right.
Go ahead.
That's fine. So on the force performing feeders, it seems like for both of you, the parts that were affected were more rural parts of your service territory. And it seemed that the solution involved vegetation management, which I would think would be in some ways easier in those parts of your service territory because you don't have that issue, which I know is usually a problem for Pepco, on complications with property owners and issues related to trees. So was the vegetation management solution like a one-time thing, or is it requiring a change in your scheduled vegetation management in order to make sure it doesn't happen again? I guess why don't we start with them, then we'll come to you.
Sure. Twofold answer there. One, I believe we were towards the end of our trim cycles, and so the work that was done in 2026 was pulling some of that forward. So there is a cyclical nature there. But then we also have what we call our hazard tree removal program, and the teams in recent history over the last year or two have really done a really nice job using data analytics to help make sure that we're not treating every tree as similar from a risk perspective, and really trying to dial in, if something were to happen in this location, what would be the impact associated with it, to get more reliability benefit for the same amount of dollars. So that will continue moving forward. And then the other element to this was distribution automation. These are feeders that are further away from others in our service territory. We also have, from like a capacity perspective, other capacity concerns in that general area. Our ability to move load from one feeder to another when something emergent happens is also a key factor in being able to maintain reliability, right? So if a tree does fall, even after these actions are taken, our ability to move customers from that circuit over to another one automatically before it becomes a sustained interruption is also key, right? So there will be outages that happen, but it's our goal to minimize, the impact when they do, and being able to quickly restore subsequent to that. So these investments are going to carry benefit, into the future.
It'll be Mr. Smith, our Director of Engineering, who will respond.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chair. My name is Aaron Smith, Alpha Romeo, Oscar November, Sierra Mike, Indigo, Tango Hotel. Just really wanted to kind of highlight that question that you just mentioned, Commissioner, where you talked about, was there an issue with the vegetation management? I wouldn't say that there's an issue. I would say, particularly as outlined by BGE, we have a cyclical nature in terms of our trimming, right? And these particular feeders in Delmarva in particular were at the end of their trimming cycle. And so we had done trimming in 2022, 2021, and we were coming up on trimming them again. But I would like to say that although vegetation is a significant contributor here for these particular feeders, it's not the only contributor, right? Especially for poor performing feeders. DPL in particular has taken a look at a number of solutions, particularly around recloser installations. We've taken a look at reconductoring as well as equipment replacement. So I will like to say that, the tree trimming, it plays a factor, but it's not the only factor. And along with those other investments that we make, we also parallel a lot of the work. So you heard me talk about the tree trimming, that's cyclical, but then we pair a lot of that work with also tree trimming as well as part of these capital investments. So if we're doing a recloser installation, we'll also do trimming around that recloser installation. If we're doing a new reconductoring project, trimming along that corridor also happens. And so it's a combined effort that happens for these essential poor performing feeder projects. And then as Doug or Mr. Mike Hill mentioned earlier, it's a lagging effect. We like to see what the investments that we're making or the actual work that we're having on those particular feeders, what the results will be, at a later date. So again, cyclical, going back to my initial point, but then there's additional work that happens to really help address many of the issues that we see on those feeders.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
For the PHI companies, you responded to the People's Council's recommendations regarding additional actions they think the commission should take. The question I asked the staff, I said I was going to ask you, so how are you doing up to now? Because conceivably, if you're catching up when you were behind, you had to have added additional resources to stay on track. So where are we at now? I know you haven't filed anything, so I'm not asking you to hold you to it. But I just wanna know where
Sure. We're playing catch up pretty aggressively. When it comes down to the original cap that was filed in 25, I know the staff reported 8, outstanding items this morning. We're down to 6 as of today that are dependent upon 2 major outages. We're working with our customers to go ahead and schedule. But overall, we're playing catch up across the board and intend to be back into compliance. And hopefully we'll set the right foot for 2027 moving forward.
Okay, so be in compliance for the cap and stay in compliance
For ongoing,
for the current
yes.
year. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Regarding the other question I asked the technical staff was the major outage event standard. Actually, both council probably remember I asked this question several years ago, and we've had a lot more microbursts since then. BGE, I know you were dealing with one just a couple of weeks ago in the service territory. So, what do you think? Should we be thinking about an additional standard to try and capture those smaller but localized and more intense storms, or are we still okay?
I'll let BGE go first if they like.
I'll defer
Alphabetical
to
order.
Rebecca Ehrlich, who's our Director of Distribution System Operations for this.
Thank you. So I think that Mr. Wilson spoke to the improved transparency and engagement with regard to both the data being requested, both being solicited and provided voluntarily during event responses, both some of the capacity actions that were coming in the high heat before the recent storms, and then during the event response itself. I think that we are well positioned to expand and potentially formalize those communications in a way that provides information without requiring this additional reporting burden that, while I read every word of every storm report that we file, I'm not sure that there is as much utility for all invested players in those reports. But if we could have some sense of expectation about what is of actual interest for the commission, we can certainly strive to provide information on an ongoing and transparent basis versus creating an additional standard that locks us into reporting certain elements that have long ago stopped having meaning for people, and compels us to be very slow to adjust to providing additional elements of detail.
Well, let me respond to that then. First of all, I wouldn't say that it's the commission requesting it, because my colleagues might be very interested in it, but they haven't said that they are. So right now, we'll just say it's me asking.
Or maybe we didn't ask the question because you had.
But that's true too. Okay, yeah. Let me use this year as an example. We'll knock on all the wood in the room. We don't have any hurricanes or major outage events from that perspective this year. But there's still been quite a few localized outages across several utility service territories. So when we have the hearing next year, the staff will produce the report based on the data you've provided, and it'll probably be green across the board, and it'll have very low numbers for major outage events. But we've had multiple smaller localized outages that have impacted a lot of customers. So when the commission goes out to the General Assembly and the local public and the media and other entities and talks to them about what's happened over the past year, the data is not going to reflect what's happened, what people know has happened, because our reporting standard looks and tracks a different type of outage or a different type of major outage. So and I know there's a lot of downstream issues with this. This data wasn't, these standards weren't just created because we just talked about it for a few minutes. I mean, it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I'm really thinking long term about what we're seeing now in terms of the climate-wise and the types of storms we're looking at, and we already know it's having an impact on consumers. So I'm not trying to add more data, and again, like I said before, I'm not trying to create a situation where there's reports nobody wants to read or suggesting utilities aren't doing a good job or anything like that. I just want to make sure we're capturing what's really happening to consumers and to ratepayers, and quite frankly, capturing what you're doing in the effort that you're extending to get service back on for so many customers. I mean, you spend a lot of money to put all of those systems back in place. And when you show up for a rate case, there should be some data here to explain what you did and why. And the staff will know, you will know, but the general public may not know, and they'll be upset the rate's going up, and the commission won't have had that information filed with us. So that's a lot of information. Again, all coming from me, but I guess my point is what we're seeing should reflect what's actually happening. And, you know, I'm not entirely sure, and hopefully we won't have anything else happening now, but the MOE reports that we get now, if we haven't had a utility with 100,000 outages, customers out, I don't think we've had so far this year.
Actually,
Maybe
BGE,
Okay.
the 4th of July through
Oh,
the
4th of July, yeah,
6th of
that's
July
right.
event did impact over 100,000 customers.
And Delmarva in February.
Del-
And that report is part of this docket.
Yes.
So, just
So,
for the record.
for the record, thank you. So there are more than that, obviously. So that's my concern.
Can I guess, you know, and certainly, you know, we're all, you know, willing to be very transparent. You know, staff has questions, you know, we're willing to answer. The commission has questions where, you know, I'm thinking back to a situation that we had, oh God, I can't remember even when it started, but we changed the definition of major outage event to also include situations when there was a state of emergency declared by the governor. And, you know, it was a very specific situation that, you know, was related to, it ended up being related to electric system operations. I can't honestly remember what it was. And so it was like, oh, well, geez, we're not getting major outage event reports because it wasn't, you know, the 10% or 100,000. And so the definition got changed. And for probably a good decade, we were filing reports that had no meaning because it was, oh, you know, the governor declared a state of emergency, but it had no impact on the electrical system. So, you know, not saying that we're not willing to talk about it, but I think it's one of those that if we're going to go down this path, let's, you know, talk about it and think about, you know, really what are we trying to capture and what will the benefit be so that we're not just filing reports or, you know, doing things for the sake of doing them. You know, think about, you know, what was the situation and make sure that we're addressing it, you know, properly and effectively.
So I just want to give a little bit of pushback. I do think, Commissioner, that you do have information on major outage event days. I think it was slide 12 of the staff presentation indicated how many major outage event days each utility has had over the past year. I think you called it up. And so, you know, for purposes of going down to Annapolis, you can demonstrate that. And there is a definition, I believe, in COMAR. Oh, it's the IEEE, I'm sorry, the IEEE definition of a major outage event day. So you do have that information, and I don't disagree with anything you've said about the increase in the smaller, you know what I mean, smaller impacted storms. I mean, the numbers just show that, and, you know, global warming, I believe, is real and causing that. That's me. So I do think you do have some of that information to explain. So I'm not certain that we need more regulation. I would also say, I know, you know, Ms. Lacey is a deputy commander of our IMT. I'm on the IMT, and I know that we are providing reports about our readiness to the commission staff here. So you are getting that information irrespective of whether or not, you know, there's a regulation in place. So I don't know that it's broke, but I think it's good for you to recognize the fact that we're getting a lot more of these smaller storms. But I do think you have the tools and the information on that.
Okay. All right. So I think we both agree that there's certainly information there, and certainly there's a conversion happening of some kind regarding how these storms look and are operating. So I'm not, again, I haven't proposed a regulation. I'm not saying that we need a new one at this point. I'm simply suggesting that there's a conversion happening. And so we're seeing different kinds of situations that are impacting customers on a local level very intensely, as opposed to the ones we've all experienced before, the very giant ones that we know about. And so I'm not sure what we do with that. And so I think we're capturing portions of it, some of it, and I just want to make sure that we're not missing all of it. Because again, it's beneficial to you too. When you show up for a rate case, you're going to talk about those things, and we're going to look through the record and say, well, where's the report about that? And so that's it.
Any
That's
other
all I had.
questions?
Thank you.
Your Honor, actually, you brought up the word rate case, and BGE has filed one recently, and we do actually get to this issue because, it is, there is a difference in kind of how things are happening, like you say, and changing a little bit, direction, but, we are proposing some different cost recovery mechanisms because of, this very issue that, we're not having as many MOEs, but we're having a lot more big storms that are still pretty costly to recover from because they're causing a lot of damage, even though they're not resulting in as many outages because of the distribution automation and that kind of stuff that we're doing. So you'll be hearing more about this if you haven't already read about it.
I would just say we have a proposal in the pending Pepco rate case, and I'm not going to say anything more other than that. You're aware of it.
Okay, I have a brief question, and my observation of reliability, I kind of divide up the timeline for me, being a Pepco ratepayer, as being pre-derecho and after derecho. And I know, as an elected official back then, that my constituents and others objected very strongly to tree trimming and vegetation management. And I would get phone calls and I would be asked to bug you to back off. And after the derecho, we would still get that kind of pushback. Only difference is we elected officials stopped bugging you, even though we told our constituents that we were. And I wonder if you have, as companies, done an analysis of how effective vegetation management has been in the last, I guess the derecho was in 2012, I think. Yeah, and there was also the Snowmageddon event that was a couple years prior to that, but it was the derecho that was really the pivot point in my recollection. Have any of you done an analysis of that? I know that, and the other question I'm going to have also is, obviously people still push back, and to what extent do you back down? Do you have a sense of any of this?
Well, again, Aaron Smith, I would say that, in terms of an analysis, it's very similar to what we do with any of our other investments. We take a look at what those investments have contributed in terms of our overall reliability. So we'll take a look at what our safety looks like present date versus where it was in prior years. We'll take a look at the investments that we made, to your point, with our trimming as well as some of our hazardous tree removals. And then we just really evaluate, like how well our overall system is faring based upon that. But again, it's not just, and I know we're talking about trees. We take a holistic look at all of the investments that we make. So it's reclosers, it's new poles, it's everything. And just take a look at where we are to date in terms of our reliability and how well we're doing in terms of the investments based on that reliability.
Well, my observation, and it's very unscientific,
Sure.
is that after vegetation management scaled up after the derecho, I had fewer complaints of blue sky
Right.
power outages, which in Rockville seem to happen all the time.
Right.
And that's a very rare occurrence now. Mr. McKeel.
So I just want to say, Commissioner, you're right, and as it relates to the COMAR vegetation management rules, and I was around when RM43 was implemented. Those are extremely prescriptive. They're so prescriptive that there are pictures in Comar, and I remember former Chairman Nazarian being very proud of the first color pictures in Comar of the trimming. So as it relates to what our vegetation management teams are required to do, we follow the Comar regulations to the letter. In other words, you know, the vertical blue sky trimming you'll see in the figures, that's what we do. And it has been helpful. Not that some customers don't get upset, because they do.
Sure.
And that's their right, and we try to work with them when we can. But having those prescriptive rules, and again, they're very prescriptive, time, what the cut needs to look like, how much blue sky. So that's what we're doing. You know, so in terms of have we done a specific study? No.
Well, I didn't know that, because strangely I had not actually looked at that portion of the Comar, so thank you.
Oh, take a look.
Well,
It's
okay.
informative.
And I just wanted to add, I mean, you're focusing on the Drake show, but that was all around the same time. So it was really, I don't think it was the Drake show that prompted the whole Comar.
Snowmageddon.
Theory. But that it was about that same time, and I'll say it is very helpful to have a Comar standard that we can say, hey, we don't have a choice. We are required by the commission to, and, you know, it doesn't make some customers, you know, it doesn't, but at least they accept that, hey, this is what we have to do. And, you know, I do think there has been, you know, education too. We've got other, you know, communication materials on our website about why we trim, when we trim, how we trim, and, you know, why it is that we trim. So I do think, you know, since that time period, it's gone a long way to getting the people to, you know, understand and, you know, maybe they don't like it, but they at least accept it.
Yeah, and one other thing that I like to add, Chair, is that, you know, what we found even with our customers, that they've been a lot more collaborative as well, you know, in terms of working with us. In a lot of events, you know, we've had to cut off right-of-way trees. We've been able to get, you know, a lot of their blessing to do some of that work. I'm not saying that it's a perfect science right now. I mean, there's still opportunity for us to still, you know, maybe standardize some of that stuff. But I would just say, just in terms of the collaboration, customers, I think, are doing a lot more in terms of working with the utility, specifically Pepco. And I know in Montgomery County, there's a huge tree canopy there, right? And no one wants to cut the trees. But, you know, they are working with us to ensure that the reliability is consistent there.
Okay, thank you. We'll leave it there for you guys. It's 11:27, so why don't we take a 10-minute break and come back, you know, 11:40 then. Let's do it then.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Jessica Reba on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company. I'll just go down the row for the benefit of the court reporter. To my left is Renee Tenney, our Director of Engineering. To her left is Dave Bedard, Manager of Engineering Services. And at the other end is Mark Zuka, our Senior Advisor of Regulatory Affairs. And Ms. Tenney is going to kick off our outbound.
Terrific. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. Again, Renee Tenney, the Director of Engineering Services. We did prepare some slides that we're going to go over with you today. To start, we're going to review our performance. As we reported, the presentation shows us failing, as was already mentioned in other reports. The SAIDI COMAR standard for 24 and 25, and also the 50-hour rule for the MOE. But there was a lot of green on that chart that you saw. We did have a good many achievements for the COMAR standards. The Potomac Edison Company 2025 SAFE performance met the standards, and it has done so for 4 of the past 5 years. Also, the COMAR standards between 21 and 25 associated with the major event. I'm sorry. The 21 through 25 with restoring interruptions restored within 8 hours was also met. The downwire response, % calls answered within 30 seconds, % vegetation management performed, and the repeat multiple device activation standards were all met. The annual abandoned call rate achieved the standard in 4 of the past 5 years, including indicating us having a strong customer accessibility and call center performance. The repeat poor performers standard met the standard in 4 of the past 5 years, reflecting really our effective management of repeat performance issues and our overall operational effectiveness. All right, so let's talk about our SAIDI performance a little bit. That is one of the COMAR standards that we have failed in 24 and 25. The performance is shown on the screen there, the historical performance for SAIDI. One of the things that have a large impact, and we're going to talk about some of our other challenges, but one of the items that have an impact is the day after the major event day. So there was already a lot of discussion about major event day today as far as reporting was concerned, but the day after the major event, the day after that is excluded, like the day of the event that is excluded, then outages that come in after that day are also impacted by the storm, because we're spending time doing the restoration of the outages that occurred on the day that was excluded, and then the day after, those outages take us longer to do than a normal blue sky day would as well. So we are seeing a large impact on the day after the storm, the day after the excluded day. Okay, a little more on the 2025 challenges. Just in summary, there has been an increase in storm activity, which we'll show here on the next slide, aging infrastructure as a whole, and off right-of-way tree failures. So there was also a good bit of discussion already today around vegetation management, and we're seeing the off right-of-way tree failures having a large impact on our system, as well as the saturated soil with the large amount of rain that we have seen, shallow root systems. We're seeing trees just uprooted, as well as the priority trees. Right. This graph, or 2 graphs that are on the screen, show the impact of the weather. I know there's been discussion around that today already as well, but you can see this specifically is for the Maryland territory for Potomac Edison, and the wind speeds is what you're seeing on the screen. So these are the graph on the left are the days with wind gusts that occurred for greater than 40 mile an hour. And then the graph on the right is the number of instances of wind gusts that were greater than 40 miles an hour. So you can see a significant increase in the number of days and number of incidents where the wind has gusted for greater than 40 miles an hour. And this is unprecedented. You can see the historical numbers that go back many years on these charts, where there were many less days of 40 mile an hour wind gusts in the Potomac Edison territory.
Good morning, Dave Bedard, Manager of Engineering Services. So the chart you're looking at now, this shows SAIDI contribution, minutes of SAIDI contribution by grouped cause. So the tall bar there that you're seeing is tree-caused outages, and then the next two would be equipment and line failures. So you can see the significant impact of tree-caused outages, and this kind of goes in line with the previous chart on the wind speed. You can see somewhat of an improving trend from 21 to 23, and then a sharp increase from 24 and 25 on the number of tree-caused outages that we experienced. I also want to comment that this is grouped cause, but if we were to break out the tree-caused, 99% of that is off right-of-way trees. So only 1% of minutes are due to on right-of-way trees. So the next slide discusses our corrective action plans. This is the effectiveness or 2024 SAIDI and safety plan. So part of that plan, we installed an automated switching system at our Wilson substation. And that was placed in service near the middle of the year, probably maybe the end of the summer of 2025. So we didn't see a full year's impact of that those switches, but they did activate once after they were installed, and it did save 155,000 CMI. But going into this year, we are going to be realizing a full benefit of that for the entire year. We also installed some monitoring systems on our animal fences, or our animal deterrent systems, which are basically electric fences around the interior of our substations. We had an issue with a number of these not operating correctly, and there was not monitoring on them, so we didn't know that they were not functioning. So we ended up having some animal-caused outages in substations in 24. We have since placed monitoring on these fences, so we know when they're not operating. 2025, we saw a significant decrease in animal-caused outages in substations. Next slide. So our 2025 corrective action plan. So we had a manufacturing defect in some of the components of our distribution automation schemes. There's some voltage sensors in those schemes that were not operating. We had to get those replaced. So we currently have 14 distribution automation schemes in our Maryland territory. 5 of those were experiencing problems because of these sensors, and we did get those replaced, and all are back in service now. So we also have a battery system, BES, installed on one of our poorest performing feeders, and it's a pilot program, so we are experiencing some issues with that we are working with the vendor to improve. But there are sometimes that operates successfully and sometimes it doesn't, and we need to get that worked out, and we are currently working with our vendor on getting those issues worked out. We also started a new technology on our vegetation management system. Kind of uses an asset analytics type tool that ranks our circuits based on using artificial intelligence, and so that we're able to trim the worst of those first to get the maximum benefit from our tree trimming program. We also, with us missing the 50-hour rule for service interruption standard, we implemented some processes for earlier activation of our process for the 50-hour rule. So what we saw in 2025 during that major outage event was that we projected initially that we weren't going to exceed 10% of our customers, but well into the storm, it turned out that we did exceed 10%. So we we weren't able to obviously retroactively apply the processes. So we should have made that identification earlier in the storm, so we could have prioritized outages based on duration and not so much by the customers impacted. So we have put some notification tools in place to capture that and to notify operations sooner so that we can change processes to one that better meets the 50-hour rule. And I will say we've had one major outage event so far in 2026, and we did achieve 100% customers restored in 50 hours or less in that event. And I think that's all, so we can entertain questions.
Okay, questions? Commissioner McLean.
Sir, thank you. Good morning. I was just wondering if you had a response to OPC's proposal on civil penalties as well as its criticisms of your cap.
So, as far as our cap is concerned, we have the established procedure per the COMAR rules for what we are going to achieve, and we did achieve what we said we were going to do in 2024. So we haven't done anything that we did everything we said we were going to do. So we don't feel that there's any need or reason or justification for penalty associated with OPC's comments. Everything we put in place, we have completed. And we believe our cap does address the problems that we had in 25. Specifically, you heard already about some problems associated with the pilot project with the battery, with the BESS battery set up, and that pilot project. We are working with the vendor on that to try to get that back working again. And the other items we are working towards to correct. So we feel that our corrective action plans are appropriate for the problems that we had in 2025. And I don't believe that the corrective action plans are set up to totally fill the gap that we had in Sadie. There are many items that impact Sadie, not just a particular circuit outage that you had from the previous year. So it's a lot of things all put together, and I don't think that was really set up to be this cap is going to get us all to the Sadie number immediately.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Questions? Commissioner Hoover.
So, remind me of this storm in April of 2025. What exactly happened? I don't remember it actually.
It was a wind, basically a wind event that came through. Lightning storm came through right around Easter. Yep.
And what part of your service territory did it primarily affect?
I don't remember exactly. I think it was primarily the western part of our territory.
So Garrett, Allegheny, or?
I believe so. I don't know that I don't have that information in front of me.
And part of the problem was not only it caused damage to your system, but apparently caused damage to roads and other stuff, which made restoration more complicated.
It did, yeah. It made access to outages more complicated.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, well, that would be it then for you guys. Thank you very much. Let's proceed to SMECO.
Yeah, I know, I'm just, looking at the agenda.
Mr. Krieger, would you like to start off?
I would. Good afternoon, Chair Barve, members of the Commission. Damon Krieger on behalf of Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative. I'm here together with today with several representatives from the cooperative. All of our names and titles are set forth in the agenda and spelled properly, so to the extent you need us to spell them again, we're happy to do so, but they are set forth in the agenda if the court reporter has a copy of that. To my immediate left, though, is Brian Lazarchuk, who is our Vice President of Electric Operations and Construction. To his left is Matthew Schlogel, who is our Distribution Engineer Manager. And behind me is Tammy Gardner, who is our Vice President of Customer Care. And to her left is Damian Black, not to be confused with my name, who is our Customer Care Director.
Okay.
And so with that, I was going to tick off a couple highlights from 2025, but much of it, if not all of it, has already been covered by staff at the beginning with its thorough presentation of our performance results, so I won't go through that list again. I'll save the commission from doing so, but I do want to hit a couple points, and then we are more than happy to address any questions that the commission may have. So first and foremost, we did, as staff indicate, meet all of our reliability standards for 2025 or exceeded them in certain cases as well. I don't recall staff highlighting our customer communication standards, but we did satisfy all of the COMAR required customer communication standards as well. We are in the midst of our 4-year vegetation management plan, so we're in that cycle trimming right now. There were obviously some questions about vegetation management. We're happy to entertain questions with respect to SMECO's program as well. We also satisfied our service interruption standard for the 2025 period. The one aspect of what was filed with the commission that I did want to at least highlight is our customer perception surveys, which were filed with the commission both with respect to the residential survey and the commercial survey. One important point to extract from the residential side is, as well as the commercial side, is that our membership are most happy with how we have performed from a reliability perspective. And the theme that permeates throughout the survey results is that members have seen a considerable uptick in reliability performance and speed of restoration over the past 3 years. A lot in credit to the work that the cooperative has done in tandem with the requirements of COMAR and otherwise. Probably not surprising, customers are most concerned about rising costs and rates, and that's what also came through the survey results. So with all of that in mind, the bottom line is that the cooperative didn't miss any of its reliability performance metrics requirements for the 2025 period. No corrective action plans are required of SMECO, and we are more than happy to entertain any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, Commissioner McLean.
Just a quick one. Good morning, sir. I think Mr. Wilson said that SMECO didn't report where it ranked in the quartile. Do cooperatives, have a ranking, or do you do a ranking similar to the other Maryland utilities, sir?
So I'll turn over to Mr. Lazarchuk. We did provide some information in data request responses to commission staff, but we do not participate in some of the benchmarking analysis available to the investor-owned utilities.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioner, Chair. Brian Lazarchuk, SMECO. So all electric cooperatives, especially this organization that we developed called Association of Large Distribution Cooperatives, which are the 10 largest co-ops across the country, do benchmarking practices to include reliability. The concern that we run into is every co-op categorizes its reliability metrics differently, so it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. Some include planned outages, some exclude planned outages. Obviously, in the state of Maryland, we know what we can report and what we don't report. But that's the issue that we face when we try to compare ourselves against cooperatives.
All right. Makes sense. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Hoover.
So this organization you created, the 10 largest co-ops, is that based on service territory size or population?
Customer members.
Okay. And so who else is in there besides you?
So Delaware Electric Cooperative, Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, there's some very large ones in Texas, Pedernales Electric Cooperative, Middle Tennessee Electric Cooperative. I think it's anywhere, any co-op that has 75,000 or more members. But it's representative. Colorado Electric Cooperative, it's across the United States.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Just a quick question. I'm checking just to verify this because I'm not, I thought I saw it this way. Smeco did not have any major outage events. Is that
That's correct.
That's correct. That's what I thought. Okay. So did you have any of the kind I've discussed with some of the companies earlier, the smaller localized outages that were extended for several days?
So not that extended for several days, but to the one graph that you had up earlier, the major event day, which is the IEEE definition, we've had 4 in 2025. Typically, we're able to get those cleaned up within 24 hours, but to your point, absolutely. We're seeing more of the small-scale thunderstorms that impact our customer members throughout Southern Maryland. To many of the points already brought up, it would just kind of be a concern of what are the thresholds that we would look at to include these, because as we mentioned, the IEEE standard, that looks at your threshold major event day, and that's a relative number across the utility, meaning utilities with higher reliability have a lower TMED, whereas utilities with poorer performance have a higher TMED. So, but it is relative to each organization's performance. But I would say minor storms and severe storms, we track them the same. So, and I will also echo, PSC engineering staff has been reaching out a lot more, even like today on a regular summer thunderstorm type of warning.
Okay, so as part of the organization that you helped put together, have other companies around the country been dealing with something similar? Have they been talking about these localized smaller issues, or has this just been, I know it's not just Maryland, but is it?
Right. So it's more like a niche. So looking across the United States, there's been a lot more wildfire concern out, especially in Colorado, that they've been looking at. I can't really say with certainty that they are seeing it across the United States, smaller IEEE or more impactful IEEE major event days.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
I think that answers all of our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let's proceed then to Office of People's Counsel. Alrighty then, please proceed whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Paige Bellamy on behalf of the Office of People's Counsel. With me is my colleague Jacob Auslander and Ben Havamaki from Synapse Energy Economics. I'd like to focus OPC's presentation on 2 of OPC's recommendations, one of the reporting recommendations and the penalty recommendations. I'd like to start, however, with an example, specifically Delmarva's corrective action plan for its noncompliance with the poorest performing feeder standard that I believe is illustrative of one of the reporting recommendations OPC is proposing. Delmarva reported 2 repeat PPFs in 2025 and filed a cap to address that poor performance. However, the actions Delmarva took prior to this cap and their planned actions moving forward provide a clear example of how OPC's reporting recommendations are targeted to address a pressing issue. In its cap, Delmarva acknowledged that the majority of the outages on the 2 PPFs were vegetation related, and that this was to be expected given the feeder's location. However, Delmarva kept the feeders on its vegetation management trim cycle until filing this cap, choosing not to advance the feeders for trimming, even as customer outage minutes were clearly the most impacted by vegetation contacts. Instead, Delmarva installed reclosers, reconductored and replaced equipment, but Delmarva acknowledged that the magnitude and growth of vegetation-related impacts offset any benefit from those investments. Only now does Delmarva include vegetation management as part of its cap. The reporting changes OPC is proposing are intended to assist the Commission and stakeholders in determining what the utility spent, why spending differed from the budget, what reliability benefits the spending was expected to produce and whether those benefits were realized, and whether lower cost alternatives were considered. Acknowledging that estimating the reliability impact of every project could be burdensome, and certainly a change from current practice, OPC proposes the Commission focus in on PPFs, as the program naturally focuses on customers experiencing worse reliability performance compared to customers experiencing reliability performance closer to the system-wide levels. To that end, OPC proposes the Commission require the utilities to provide estimates of SAIDI and safety improvement for planned project, program, or action level work on a feeder that qualifies as a PPF, as well as expected costs of that work and the utilities method for estimating those improvements. Second, I'd like to touch on OPC's recommended penalties. I'll start with our proposal regarding PEPCO and Delmarva. OPC is proposing the Commission assess a civil penalty to both PEPCO and Delmarva for the company's continued periodic inspection and preventative maintenance noncompliance. The seriousness of these violations should not be discounted. Inspections and preventative maintenance are basic reliability and safety obligations. It's the way utilities verify the condition of the equipment that customers have paid for and rely on to operate safely. It is not just a reporting requirement. PEPCO's noncompliance is substantial. Not only has PEPCO failed to complete all of the inspections originally identified in its 2024 CAP, but PEPCO failed to complete 51 preventative maintenance tasks and inspections that were due in 2025, only adding to its noncompliance. Delmarva is also noncompliant. The review the Commission ordered last year revealed additional work Delmarva had not completed, 26 of which were due in 25. The Commission has already treated this type of violation as serious, assessing BGE a civil penalty in order number 89260 for missing 21 preventative maintenance inspections. Although PUA 13201 authorizes a penalty of up to $25,000 per offense per day, the Commission assessed a $10,000 per missed inspection for a total penalty of $210,000. The Commission considered the gravity of BGE's noncompliance, its compliance history, and mitigating facts when it assessed a reduced penalty of $10,000 per missed inspection. These factors support assessing PEPCO and Delmarva civil penalties in this instance. For PEPCO, OPC proposes the Commission assess a civil penalty of $510,000, $10,000 for each of the 51 tasks and inspections that were due in 2025. This is proportionate to the previously assessed penalty on BGE. The number of tasks outstanding is larger than BGE's, and PEPCO's noncompliance from 2024 remains unresolved. For Delmarva, OPC proposes the Commission assess a penalty of $260,000, $10,000 for each of the 26 tasks that were due in 2025 that were incomplete. Again, Delmarva's task count is larger than BGE's when BGE was assessed a civil penalty, but this recommendation does not include tasks that predate 2025 and were uncovered through the Commission-ordered review. Rather, this recommendation focuses on those tasks that accumulated while Delmarva was under the 2024 Corrective Action Plan and on notice for its noncompliance. Finally, I'd like to touch on OPC's proposed assessment of a civil penalty for PE's continued SAIDI standard noncompliance. This is the second year PE has failed to meet its SAIDI standard, and PE's performance has only deteriorated while under the Corrective Action Plan accepted last year. PE exceeded its SAIDI standard by 31.8 minutes, yet only qualified about 3 of those minutes explicitly. PE's second CAP does not demonstrate how the company will return to compliance, and therefore does not give the Commission a concrete basis to find the company is likely to meet its SAIDI standard in 2026. PUA 13201 authorizes the Commission to assess a civil penalty of up to $25,000 for a violation, and that each day or part of a day of a violation continues is a separate offense. OPC determined that by the end of September 2025, PE had accumulated its full SAIDI standard of 142 minutes. Multiplying the statutory maximum by the remaining days in 2025 would result in a penalty of $2.3 million. OPC does not propose the Commission assess this amount. Instead, OPC proposes the Commission calibrate a penalty to the magnitude of PE's SAIDI exceedance. PE exceeded its standard by 31.8 minutes, or approximately 22.4% of its 142-minute standard. Assessing $10,000 per percentage point results in a penalty of $224,000, and OPC recommends rounding that to $225,000. This is a reasonable approach, as a flat, yearly $25,000 penalty would not adequately reflect the gravity of a system-wide, yearly standard noncompliance. But assessing the maximum per-day penalty does not account for the fact that SAIDI is a cumulative standard and would more harshly penalize earlier SAIDI exceedances while failing to account for better performance at the end of the year or after exceeding the standard. $225,000 is appropriate. It is not the maximum available, but it also reflects the gravity of PE's continued deteriorating performance. We are available for questions.
Questions? Commissioner McLean.
Good afternoon. One of your recommendations, and I'm just looking at PEPCO's, you want a measurable criteria for determining whether PEPCO's corrective actions are effective. And I think you probably heard Mr. Mike Keel explain that, it's like an omelet. It's just not one thing. I mean, how do you respond to that? I mean, is this something that's even measurable?
I do believe that it's measurable based on the waterfall charts that the companies have supplied with their reliability standards reporting filings. And in addition, the information we included in our comment regarding BG&E's horse performing feeder demonstrates that this is a possible analysis. Obviously, our comments give latitude for the method the utility chooses to perform, how to assess reliability impact. But we do believe that visibility is important as we move forward and assess whether or not these corrective action plans are getting at exactly what they need to be getting at.
Okay, and something you said kind of leads me into my next question. Given the utilities the flexibility to determine, how they measure reliability, aren't we going to be, if we adopt that, and next year, aren't we going to be back here arguing whether or not their methodology was correct? I mean, shouldn't there be something more concrete? I mean, do you have recommended criteria that we should be requiring?
I don't know if Mr. Habimaki has thoughts on that question, but I would say that BG&E provides a best practice in doing so. From OPC's perspective, we think that would be a best practice for the utilities, but understanding that this is a new practice in reliability, we're evolving every single year with these reports. Wanted to offer that as a flexibility.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bellamy. I agree with Ms. Bellamy that I think seeing what the utilities are able to do, giving them the opportunity to put forward proposed methodologies would represent significant improvement. And even if that does result in some wrangling over methodology, I believe that would be a step forward as opposed to, what is essentially an information vacuum.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Go ahead.
So, I guess maybe Mr. Oshlander might have been here when this process was originally started as a result of what were then, fairly extensive problems with reliability when it came to PEPCO. And it seems to me that the initial response by the commission at that point was to, in fact, fine PEPCO repeatedly for those problems in the reliability. But the sense I got was that the fines didn't really seem to have any real impact. I mean, they paid the fines, but the problems just continued, and it wasn't until actually legislation was passed by then Delegate Barve and his colleagues that sort of created this new process that we're actually operating under. So I guess my question is, I mean, staff didn't support the idea that we should impose penalties. So I'd like to hear why you think the penalties would actually have some impact on correcting what you might view as the problems.
I'll go ahead and take that. So, I think from the original enactment of 7-213, the Commission has been authorized to assess penalties for the violation of reliability standards. We do think that penalties would have a crystallizing effect on the utility's decision making in a way that a ongoing practice of simply requiring corrective action plans be filed may not. I would mention that our penalty recommendations in this year's cycle are reflective of the recurring nature of some of the violations. So, in a sense, the commission has utilized the corrective action plan mechanism to remedy violations in the past. I think the question becomes, well, what happens when there are situations where a corrective action plan is not complied with? We think that the next logical step is to use that existing statutory authority to assess penalties, and I guess the Public Utilities article provides a pretty broad level of penalties, and I would certainly think that should the commission ever get to the point where they're assessing penalties anywhere near the maximum, that would certainly change the utilities decision making.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I saw Mr. Mike Keel vigorously shaking his head in the back of the room. I presume you have a quick, I'll allow a quick comment.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. First of all, Pepco was not fined prior to the one fine that Pepco received in case number 9240. It was $1 million for failure to do appropriate tree trimming, and that was for some of the reasons that Chairman Barve talked about. But in terms of previous fines, that's the only fine that I'm aware of that Pepco has received. Delmarva Power had during the merger had overspent its tree trimming budget by $45,000 and had to give that back to customers, but it was not a fine. And then I just want to point out, if it wasn't clear, that these periodic inspections, this is not recurring issues. This is the one time, and we're working through the ones that we had. This is not our third or fourth violation of that. This is the first.
Okay, we got that from your original, but thank you. Commissioner Linton, do you have any questions? I don't have any questions, so thank you very much. And with that, unless there's something on the opposite side of the paper, we are concluded. We're adjourned.